Awesome, and I am live. So in my last video or live stream, I can't remember if it was a live stream or a video. I think it was a live stream. I talked about this year's Pork Fest, which ended about 2 weeks ago now, and I wanted to. One of the main things about that Pork Fest, one of the things that made it so different for me, is that I was running an event, and by virtue of running the event, I kind of got a very different feeling for what Pork Fest was like. So I wanted to zoom in on specifically my experience of running the communal showers at Pork Fest. For those of you who have watched the channel for a long time, you know that that's been one of my main non-libertarian topics. I would go so far to say probably the most outstandingly not really libertarian topics. I guess foreskin and circumcision being the other one, but that actually touches on a lot of libertarian ideals. But communal showers have been an area of social interest of mine for a very long time. And kind of all of a sudden, out of the blue, I got offered the opportunity, or the opportunity came along for me to build and operate communal showers at Pork Fest, which is in dire need. So I'm going to post this in my subreddit because they will definitely find this interesting. Let's see. There we go. Bear with me here. Submit. Boom. And it's live. All right. Yes, communal. I've finally given in, Jim Jesus. I have listened to Jacques Fresco enough now that I am a full communist. So the communal showers were run by robots that knew exactly what everybody needed, and they brainwashed everybody to want exactly what it produced. So if there was anybody who didn't like communal showers, we used Pavlovian techniques to alter their minds so that they would accept it. No, it's just a joke. So a little bit of the backstory here. So Pork Fest, this festival up in northern New Hampshire, it's in a beautiful setting. The campground's stunning location, excellent views of the northern White Mountains and indeed some of the other bits of the White Mountains. But unfortunately, the campground is very old and not logistically up to the task. I don't even know if it's logistically up to just having a normal number of campers, and certainly not up to the task of hosting an event with 3,000 people or more. And as many years I've been going there, I've never had a proper shower there, never had a good one. Very often there was no water at all. When there was water, it was never hot. And the facilities, in addition to being stalls, which were always dirty. And here's one of the logistical benefits of communal showers. They didn't become popularized for, I don't think, explicitly social reasons, but they are just much easier to clean. Like there's fewer surfaces, fewer angles, fewer corners, no drapes, no doors, no hinges, no small corners. So logistically, they can be kept clean pretty easily. Whereas stalls, actually, even with a dedicated janitorial staff, they really can't be kept as clean no matter what. Now, obviously, if you have communal showers that nobody ever cleans, then those will become dirty, obviously. But it takes way less effort to get way more cleanliness out of it. So Pork Fest, in addition to the facilities not being great, they're kind of not enough of them. So I think that you're looking at about less than 10 showers for each sex. So maybe 10 for guys, 10 for girls, spread out in 3 locations across the campground. I could get that math a little wrong. Maybe as high as 12, 10 to 12. And again, 10 to 12 showers for that many people is really insufficient. Now, granted, some people stay in nearby hotels. Some people have shower facilities, say in an RV or in a camp. Those are usually not very good, but they're there, and there are people who will use them. You can't be next to somebody who had an RV that had a tiny little, almost like a phone booth or literally a water closet, combination toilet, sink, shower. But yeah, the facilities were never very good. Now, I had thought of the idea of having communal showers there for quite a while. Obviously, it's something that I've always thought was valuable and good, and that's a perfect setting. And indeed, historically, campgrounds often did have communal showers, but there was a shift away from that 20, 30 years ago. I'm sure they still exist, but they're way less common than they once were. And a couple of the people at PorcFest, and here's the thing, is PorcFest is one of those places where if you complain about something that you don't like, if there's some aspect about the festival that you find distasteful, and specifically if you're talking about some kind of lack of a service, right? If you think there's something that should be provided that's not, then there's a lot of pressure for you to just do it. They're pretty lax. This isn't, they're not taking licenses. They're not requiring people to be registered. They're not requiring people to basically do anything other than get a site. There is some negotiations there if you're going to do something that's going to disrupt the facilities. So, for instance, when we did this, they wanted to be sure that we weren't going to take the water from the campground, because there's no way that there would be enough for that. And of course, we didn't. We brought our own water, but if you go around complaining that, if you were to go around saying there's not enough pizza, for instance, people would just tell you you should change that and bring a pizza business there, or whatever it may be. And I had some friends there who, and people. It's funny. I get a lot of, not a lot, but there's a couple people. The ones who always say lolberts, the ones who dismiss libertarians and think, these post-libertarian alt-right race realists, typically, not always, will say, if it was really that bad, why does the government allow you to exist? And the thing is, the FBI does investigate people. Lots of people in New Hampshire recently have been raided by the FBI and arrested. It's happened before. It's happening now. And two of my very good, longtime friends, I don't want to exaggerate how close I am to them, but known them for years, been friendly with them for years. They were gone because they were getting questioned by the FBI, and so many other people in New Hampshire had been raided and charged that they split and left the country. But that's the tangent to saying, they always thought that there should be better parties at PorcFest, so they started hosting large active parties. They built a geodesic dome and they'd have parties. So when I would tell them I thought we should have communal showers at PorcFest, they said, then you should do it. The idea made sense in principle, but it was so logistically daunting that I just kind of wrote it off and decided never to do it. Now, some of you know, I've made a video years ago called The Curious Decline of Communal Showers. It's one of the few videos that I've had that's had like legs that people still watch. I still get comments on it. It slowly gets up in videos. Nothing I've ever done has been viral, but that's got up to, I think, 20 or 30,000 views at this point. And you get, not only do you get comments, you get kind of long, thoughtful comments. Like, people will sometimes write several paragraphs about their experiences. So it's something that, granted, not everybody cares about, but there's a certain subset of the population that finds a really compelling topic. Granted, not everybody, but some. And there's such a dearth of material out there that they kind of all end up on my subreddit or on my channel. But one of my subscribers reached out to me, and he said that he always liked that idea. He'd never done it before. He wanted to try. And looking at the PorcFest forums, he found somebody else, coincidentally somebody that I also knew, who wanted to do a nudism-related thing. It was so-called the Body Freedom Village, if you want to look it up. It was on some of the official stuff. And one of the things the Body Freedom Village wanted was a hot tub, and the only way that a hot tub would work in this situation, the only way it could possibly be kept clean, would be if there were shower facilities right there. It wasn't good enough to have shower facilities somewhere on the camp. There'd be too much of an issue of people saying they had showered when they hadn't, or not been sufficiently showered or whatnot. And also the problem of them walking halfway, could be a quarter of a mile sometimes, from wherever they showered to the hot tub, something you wouldn't really want if you wanted people to be as clean as possible. So the guy running that wanted there to be showers. He was trying to, have each people take up different parts, different aspects of the thing. So he had somebody who brought the hot tub and figured all that out. They had somebody else who did the furniture, and he said he wanted to do the showers. And my subscriber said, hey, we should do this. So we reached out and said, yeah, let's do this. So there was a slight philosophical difference there, and that I'm not a nudist and they are, although I guess as being a communal shower advocate, I'm not too far removed from being a nudist. I have nothing against nudism. Like, the laws against it are kind of draconian, I would think, and everything should be private, and we don't have to worry about that then. But, so we went about trying to set up a communal shower facility at PorcFest. So the first problem, the last problem, the most intractable problem was water. again, this campground has 6 wells. It turns out they have about 10,000 gallons of storage at the top, basically a water tower at the top of the hill. The campground is situated on the slope of a hill, so if you were to put a water tower or basin at the summit, you would have water pressure throughout the whole camp. But it's been something of a drought there, which is surprising to hear because we've got a lot of rain actually this year, but it's something that I think takes a couple of years to really trickle down. And the wells there basically can't keep up with the demand. I was told by the staff that as soon as you get 8, 9, 10 a.m., when people start showering, it just empties the tanks and then there's no water. And of course, you can't really allow that to happen because you need some water in case there's some kind of an emergency, right? So there's a huge water shortage. So we spent from maybe March or maybe even February until June looking for both a place to rent water tanks or buy water tanks and a place to fill those tanks with potable water. And everybody that we called, some people said it was too far, they wouldn't do it. Some people said they would do it, but then they can't cross state lines. So, we've got federal regulations that mean that if you want to do business across state lines, it's a whole different suite of licenses that you have to have that's actually quite difficult to obtain, quite expensive to attain and to maintain. So I found one business owner in Vermont who said that he could get me 3,000 gallons of storage and 4,000 gallons of water for $800, delivered wherever. And that was a tremendous deal, well within our price range. We had kind of set limits to what we wanted to spend. And when I told him where it was, Lancaster, New Hampshire is literally on the border. We were probably less than a mile or maybe just over a mile from the border, maybe 2 or 3 miles by road from Vermont. And yet this guy who seemed pretty willing to negotiate and to bargain and pretty open-minded to different ideas. At one point he suggested that we actually buy his water truck from him and then sell it back to him after. But despite all that haggling and all that willingness to negotiate, he was absolutely intractable that he could not cross the border. If he were to be caught, he would lose all of his licenses in addition to fines, which, we hear about a $250,000 fine, and certainly for some companies a $250,000 fine is nothing. But when you have a smaller operation, that can just completely wipe you out totally. So, so some of the other businesses that we called in New Hampshire said that it was too far, that they couldn't do it. We called the fire department, other local parks. There's a park that has some water rides nearby. Asked them, say, do you want to sell some of your water? They absolutely said, nope, no way. Using the water at PorcFest was completely out of the question. They don't have enough for what's already there. So I think PorcFest started on a Monday, basically, officially, and a lot of people show up on Sunday. We found somebody on Friday, so like literally days before, who said that they would sell us or rent us, our choice, basically 275 and 310 gallon water tanks. They were used, but still clean and usable for pretty cheap, and that he would fill them with river water. Now, that obviously, raises an eyebrow. River water. Is this from the Ganges, or is this from the headwaters of Ice Mountain? We don't know. Even within New Hampshire, the Industrial Revolution started on the Merrimack River. This guy actually lived in Hooksett, which is not, I think it touches the Merrimack River. It's nearby. So I'm thinking, are we going to get this from not that the Merrimack is heavily used now. I'm sure it's by far not the most polluted river or even close in the country, but still. So it's not the East River, the Lower Hudson, or the Cuyahoga in Ohio, which famously is caught on fire repeatedly, but still not something I necessarily would want to shower with. Whereas the rivers in northern New Hampshire, obviously far less development, far less contamination, although maybe there's contamination from wildlife. Didn't really want to think about it. So we negotiated with him. He brought up the tanks empty and then took them one by one. His transit could safely carry 1 or 2 of them full, but not all of them. I think we ended up buying 6. So let's see if I do the math here. The 6 of them would have ended up weighing, let's see, 2150 times. Yeah, 17,200 pounds. Um, and plus the weight of the containers, which would easily add another 500 pounds to that. Each container probably weighed 200 or 300 pounds empty. And we use river water. We treated it with bromide so that it would kill any of the pathogens in there, any kind of microbes. And then, of course, we just said no one can drink it. It's just for washing. And, that's fair. People swim in rivers all the time. I've bathed in rivers before. Perfectly good at getting you clean. Obviously, ideally, you would want potable water. But, just turned out not to be feasible under the time frame. We spent months and months. Many of the places that we called, some places never got back to us, or they would. I talked to one where you would call and leave a message, and they said, we'll get back to you on the message. And 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, call again. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, call again. Finally talk to somebody and tell them what I need, how many gallons, what kind of tanks, how far I need it to go. They say they'll get back to me with an estimate, and they never did. They never, ever did. And when I called again, it said that you could leave a message to book, and when it went to their answering machine, it was full, and you couldn't leave a message, so you couldn't even get in contact with them. I checked out later their Facebook page, and lots of people were saying similar things. So I don't know if that's endemic to that business or there's just a general trend here, but there seems to be something of a shortage or inability of people to do this. I mean, we talk to people who fill pools, people who do construction, like people who provide water specifically for this, like for festivals or for, if you imagine you're maybe redoing your well at your house and you want to have water still there, or you've got a construction site, you want to have water still there. That's the service. And when I worked in the oil industry, that's where we got all of our water. I mean, I've been drinking and using, you don't drink the water. If you go to an oil rig, just FYI, do not drink the water out of the tap. You can shower with that, you can wash your dishes in it, but they will also provide like bottled water, and that's what you should use. But, like not that I was running those logistics, but I was working around and seeing how they operated, and usually with 1,000-gallon tanks that would be delivered and filled periodically for the duration. Well, sometimes those tanks would be in a spot for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. And for a single oil rig, there might be 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 gallons of water just for the facilities that people live in. Never mind the water that the actual oil rig uses. That would be on a whole other scale. If they're drilling with water, sometimes they drill with oil and that with water. But so this was a little bit of a jerry rig. Now, because we did not have the water set up, I was reluctant to get too far along in other plans. Right, I did not want to go and buy a whole bunch of stuff only to find out at the last, when it finally came time, that there was no water to use, right? The one piece of equipment that we did get early on was the actual showers. So we ended up going, there were a couple options here. We thought about rigging up our own hot water. We would have loved to have found a Bradley pole. Bradley poles are kind of like the most communal of the communal showering apparatuses. I personally only used them a few times in my life. They used to be extremely popular. They're good in the sense that you can get the most number of showering spaces in the smallest actual space. So if you have a shower room that can fit, maybe like if I was using my gym, for example, my gym has 7 shower heads in the main room. And one of the reasons it has 7 instead of 8 is because there's a door. So let's say the doors only had 8, and that's about what it could fit along the wall, 8. If they put 2 Bradley poles with 5 showers each, that would be 10. It would be the same space, but you could fit 2 more people. And they're also, in terms of maintenance, a lot easier because you don't have to take out a wall. And I guess when you install them, it's pretty simple. You hook up hot and cold going in, and then each shower valve controls the admixture. However, I was a little bit sanguine, not being a plumber, about us, rigging up a temperature control system, and then we would have to have hot water heaters and cold water and 2 separate systems. And that seemed like definitely doable with the right expertise, but expertise that we did not have. And we didn't have the time to really work out the kinks. If this is something that we had had a few months to have it set up beforehand and tested, that might have worked well, but under the circumstances, absolutely not possible, or not advisable anyway. Probably possible, but not advisable. So we ended up using a company called J-Cool, which is Jacool. It's an Australian-based company, and they basically specialize in what you could call outdoorsy camping type stuff. And these are basically showers that are designed to use natural water supplies. They have their own heater. They don't use electricity. They have batteries, like minor batteries. The only thing the batteries do, I believe, is spark the propane. So you hook it up to propane. You hook it up to a propane, and then you run a hose into a source of water. And some of them that you can buy, each individual shower will have its own pump, which I think is good for 75 feet, which is a lot of distance for most purposes. But they have other versions that don't have their own pump. And so we bought 4 of them. I think they were about $260 a piece. There's a little bit of a lead time on them, so they're the first items that we bought. And then we bought a couple, well, basically one, and then a second, basically $80 transfer pumps. Now, from Harbor Freight, I think the company is called Drummond that we actually used, and they were both, one was a 1/10 and one was a 1/8 horsepower transfer pump. So these are designed not to run a shower, but to submerge a hose into an area where you've got excess water and then just pump it out someplace else, from or one tank to another tank, something like that. Kind of with fixtures that line up with the diameter of a garden hose. So the idea was we would fill the tanks with water, then we would run them through this transfer pump, and then I went to Lowe's, got a whole bunch of brass fittings that would allow me to take I wish I had it here, I'd show you guys, but like brass fittings to split the garden hose into 4 separate streams, and each one of those would then go to a separate shower. Each shower then would have its own propane tank and its own temperature control, its own shower head. They're magnetic, although we didn't have anything magnetic to stick them to, sadly, but there was some worry. The transfer pumps are not supposed to operate with back pressure, so there was a question of would there be back pressure or not. The other thing is the pump ended up being right near the water, where the showers were basically in an adjacent camping site, so a good 30 or 40 feet away. So then it became a question of how are you going to turn on the pump and turn on the showers at the same time. And this was solved by a sump pump. Now, I had bought a sump pump because I didn't know if the transfer pump was going to work. I think that the sump pump may work, but and that was the first thing we tried. But the sump pump included with it a sump valve. If you've ever seen this, it's a plastic cylinder that is designed to float, and when it's in the hanging position, the water will be off, and when it floats up, the pump will turn on. This idea is you put this in a basement or in a basin of some type, and when the water level is low, the float will be hanging down. Since the water is low, you don't need to turn the pump on. When the float goes up, the water will turn on. Now, we weren't going to use water to do that. We just made a space, actually a pool noodle, with the pump hanging, the float hanging there, and you would just put it in the upright position, and it would turn on the pump. And with about a 4 or 5 second lag, all the showers would come on. Now, you could individually turn them off. I tended to like people to leave them on just to minimize the chance that there'd be a back pressure problem. As it was, we only had the one pump at the time. If we do it again, I'll make sure that we have more than one, just so that we don't have to worry about that potentially happening. And took some. So let's see, I got there late Monday night. We started doing the setup on Tuesday, doing experiments with the various types of pumps. So we decided not to use the pump, the sump pump, but rather the transfer pump. And we started getting water out of some of the hoses. It was a little leaky at first, but we just did some tightening with the valves. Interestingly enough, when we split the water from 2 to 3 to 4 showers, it didn't really change the water pressure at all. So the capacity of that transfer pump, and it was a 1/8 horsepower transfer pump, which doesn't sound like a lot, but is apparently plenty. The pump was designed to pump water vertically 40 feet. We were going vertically probably less than 10 feet, and then horizontally maybe 30 or 40 feet. So well within its abilities. Yeah, so then the other thing, I wasn't sure going in. I knew that we were going to be in a nudist camp. I knew the guy who runs the nudist thing, again, I've known him for a couple of years, not particularly close, but, you know, friendly acquaintance over a long time. And I didn't know if we wanted it to be completely open or if we wanted it to be concealed, and if so, to what degree. That's stuff that we just had not worked out. We had discussions about, should we have two, one for men, one for women, one for kids, one for, we weren't really sure what we were going to be capable of. We didn't know if there was even going to be water, and if there was, we weren't sure 100% that the pump would actually be able to pump water into the showers. We just weren't sure that was going to happen. We weren't sure until it worked, and it ended up working really, really well. And so now we were struck with this, oh, okay, we do actually have showers here, and they work really well. The Jacools, I'll speak very highly of them. They warm the water. They had a dial that was about a 90-degree dial, and even 10 degrees, you got water that was too hot for almost anybody. I swear you could boil water with these things. Amazing how quickly, too. It just pumps water in. There can't be any kind of basin. I mean, the actual J-Cools themselves are not very big. I'd say they're about the size of a backpack. They maybe weigh 10 pounds, 15 pounds, something like that. And they must have some kind of coiled system where the water goes in and is then heated. No visible flame comes out of these things, but they are burning propane. Wait. Who is B. McElroy? Oh, wait, were you at PorkFest, B. McElroy? If you were, let me say so. I wasn't sure if we were going to have them be enclosed or not. I decided to come prepared to make them enclosed. So I bought a couple heavy-duty stakes, some 2-inch PVC pipe in 10-foot sections, a saw, and some connectors for those PVC pipes. And then I bought 3 or 4 tarps. And then for the floor, I just had gone to Lowe's and bought an 8x4 piece of plywood, 3/4 inch thick, compressed board. I learned some things, right? So it's one thing to do these for a week. If you do them more than that, you're going to have to build it out of something that is absolutely okay with a lot of water. Those boards, having disassembled them now, they were fine for the week. They did have a lot of water damage, and they would have clearly, they are, I'm not even sure that they're reusable ever again. And then, so the floor was, and then to kind of do some waterproofing, when I was at Lowe's, I saw this product. It's basically a liner that you place on your hardwood floor. It's plywood with a rubberized surface on one side. The idea is that you would coat your hardwood floor with this and then put your carpeting over that. And so if anyone was to spill something onto the floor, it would go through the carpet, but then this would be a watertight, water resistant seal that would keep it from getting on your hardwood floor. The other thing I liked about it is the rubbering had I must say crenellations, ribbing on it, and this would make it so that it would not be slippery. So I got, those were, I believe, 2 by 2 feet. So I got 8 of them, which basically covered the entire surface. Putting them upside down, so rubber side up with the grooves. And then to support the floor, I just went to a local store in Lancaster, a hardware store. If you've never been to a small town, you get these hardware stores that basically sell everything, and this is one of those places. A little bit of everything, but not a lot of anything, if that makes sense. And helped myself. I asked them if I could buy some of their pallets, and they said I could take as many as I wanted as long as I didn't make a mess. And I picked 4, and that allowed us to elevate the floor, which we needed to do for drainage. We were on an RV site. The RV site allowed for drainage, and we just had to have it be elevated enough that the water could flow into the septic system of the camp. And that's what we did. I got a 4-inch PVC pipe that I cut in half, or fortunately had somebody on the camp who was a plumber who was able to cut it in half. and we use that as a gutter. So we have this floor, which is 8x4, which is plenty big enough for 3 or 4 people, no problem, maybe even more. Sitting on a stack of 2 pallets each. Pallets, these types of pallets probably can handle a ton or 2, which is going to be way less than we put on them. So they're actually fairly sturdy. They're not really going to tip. And then we wanted them to have a slant so that the water would flow off. And so ran a series of 2x4s under the front, so that there would be, about a 1 or 2 inch difference between the front of the pallets and the back, which would allow the water to flow down. A little bit tricky because the pallets were cut into 2 pieces for transport reasons. I much would have preferred to have had a single 8x4 piece of plywood as the floor, but that would not have fit any of the vehicles that we had to move it. I couldn't have retrieved it from Home Depot, so I had them cut it in half. For transport and putting together, that was great. In terms of drainage, though, it made it much harder because now that there was basically a seam, so we had to run a gutter through that, which turned out to be one of the trickier parts. We ended up getting it to work just fine. With a little better planning, I think that wouldn't have been too much of an issue. So we have the showers, we've got the floor, and then we built a palisade around. As we were setting up, the guy running the Body Freedom Village, Jeff, approached me and said some of the local campers, some of the people around the area had approached him before. And at this point, it's early in the festival. Nothing's really happened. There's nothing untoward happened. And I should say something about Jeff. Jeff is gay, but his approach to nudism is completely and totally non-sexual. If you are familiar with nudists, many of them are quite careful to avoid kind of any accusation of sexual impropriety or any belief that they're only doing this for sex. I'm sure that is a thing that some people believe and feel, but genuinely many people do just like being naked, and they are really sensitive to being accused of this being a sexual thing for them. And again, it's understandable if you've never encountered them to maybe think that. So nothing sexually explicit ever happened, and nothing would have been tolerated if it had. But people don't necessarily know that. So some of the local campers, there was a family nearby who had come down and approached and said, "Hey, what?" They were a little bit uncomfortable with it at first. And so Jeff said, "Can you make it so the showers are private, so they can't be seen from passerbys?" And I said, "Sure." So built basically a frame around the showers and put up tarps on 3 sides, and then basically a flap like a curtain on the 4th. No roof. So people's heads would be visible. People could see that you were showering, but they would not be able to see any part of your body. In fact, for shorter people, for women, for instance, that they wouldn't be able to be seen almost at all. Even for tall men, the tallest guy in there was one guy who was 6'9", and like his shoulders were visible, but that was about it. And put it together and had water, right? We had hot water, we had showers. At first, we only employed 2 shower heads, but we had the valve set up to add up to 2 more, so we'd have up to 4. And it was on demand. We put the sump valve inside the shower, so somebody using the showers would go in, there'd be no water on. They'd turn the pump on, the shower heads would all turn on, and then they could shower at their leisure, adjusting the temperature. And I'd say a decent proportion of the people who did that were using it to use the hot tub, but a lot of people were doing them just to take showers. Now, the other thing, we talked about them being co-ed or not being co-ed. I have to say my personal preference would have just to have them be split between male and female, men and women. We did have some trans people use them, so what we would have done with them, we could launch into that entire debate right now, because of the 2 people at least who were trans who used them. But given the limitations, we were looking at 4 total shower heads. If we split them up for men and women, that would be 2 each. And as it turned out, the ratio was really more like 3 guys to every 1 girl who used the facilities. So it would have made sense to have 3 for the guys, 1 for the girl, but we didn't know that going in. And also it would have required more than double of the space. So just much easier just for it to be co-ed. So that's what they were. They were co-ed. Everybody used them. If they were younger, if they were older, if they were men, if they're women, if they're trans, everybody used the same showers. And that ended up working just fine. I don't know, because we didn't ask the people who didn't go. Do you find trans people attractive? Cinefan, I have a huge love of uncut dick. So what do you think my answer to that question is? The day the surgeons can make great uncut dicks, I'll have a different view. I have hooked up with trans people before on a few occasions, but it wasn't. No, it's not my thing. There's some nice ones out there. I've had some fun, but like it's not what I would normally go to. But trans people use the showers. I mean, at least 2 that I saw, and maybe more that I saw and didn't know that they were trans or just didn't see. I wasn't there the entire time. I couldn't keep 100% track of who used it and when. But we had them open basically by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, which is almost halfway through the festival. So next time we'll get that a little bit earlier, I think. One of the things that fell completely through the cracks is we did no marketing. There was no signage, nothing in the official documentation or the literature. No posting, no nothing. And I think that would have helped quite a lot in terms of the people. We did have people. It wasn't dead by any means. And every day that we were open, more and more people used it. And the people who did tended to come back and use it again and again. And many times they would actually bring other people with them, friends, family, things like that. So the people who were using them tended to enjoy them. I don't want to generalize. I don't think that there was a general trend among those people. Like, there were a lot of gay guys, but there were also a lot of people. Yeah, no striped pajamas, and it was hot water, not gas. Yeah. I think a lot of people just wanted to take a shower, right? The facilities there, just like I had originally thought, just like the initial reason of building them, they either had no water or no hot water, or the facilities are really hired some child labor next time to advertise. This is absolutely something I wanted to do. One of the best things about PorcFest is there is a ton of child labor. There's a ton of child entrepreneurship. I got offered moonshine by an 11-year-old. She had a little red wagon. She was pulling around offering moonshine. And when I asked her how old she was, she said 27 with an innocent grin. I said, how old are you really? She said 11. And I said, why are you doing this? And she says, my parents say I get 20%. So there you go. And so we did actually talk about finding a child to go around with a sign, or hand out cards. But we didn't have a sign. We didn't have cards. And, that did not happen. Maybe next year we'll do that. But this year wasn't in the cards, sadly. I think some signage, some mappage, and some stuff like that would really go a long way. So we set up on Wednesday. It starts to run on Wednesday. And then on Wednesday night, so the people who run PorcFest, there's a couple people who are, I don't know if they're volunteers or if they're paid, but they basically are the liaison between the Free State Project and Rogers Campground, the actual campground. And they had a facilities guy whose job was to keep everything, all the bathrooms clean to the extent that that's even possible under these circumstances. And they were the ones who questioned us about the water. Are you going to take our water or what? And we said no. And they were very happy. And they were actually not surprisingly, they were very grateful that we had showers there. He's like, wow, this is going to. So he came to me. I was walking around at night trying to find some dinner. And this guy pulled up in a golf cart. And the facilities people, the official people are in golf carts typically, right? And he came up and he said, hey, you're the one running the showers. And I was one of the ones running the showers anyway. And he said, yeah, so tomorrow around 10 or 11 a.m., I'm turning off the water for the bathrooms. And there's a good chance I'll turn off the water for the entire campground. So he wanted to know what we were capable of, how many people we could do, how much water we had, so he wanted to know if we were charging, and I said, nope, it's free. We have about 2,000 gallons, 2,100 gallons. We can do 4 people at a time, and we have hot water on demand. And the only thing is that we're requiring that people use them naked, which it's funny. It's just an interesting testament to shifts in our society. You don't have to say this is a good shift or a bad shift, but like 20, 30, 40 years ago, having a rule that you have to shower naked before going to a pool, at a gym, in a gym class, totally unremarkable. In fact, it would be almost weird if that wasn't the case. But now not suddenly, but at this point, that seems like not only unusual to a lot of people, it seems onerous to a lot of people. That's like a high, unreasonable thing to expect somebody to do. Now, to be perfectly fair to the critics here, in terms of using the hot tub, absolutely nudity for showering made sense. The logistics of this: if you shower wearing a suit or clothing or boxers or underwear, though that clothing will act as a net, and some of the material that you're trying to wash away is not going to wash away. It's going to get stuck in your underwear or your swimming suit or whatever it is that you're wearing. Now, if that was just on you, not a huge problem. Although if you're in a communal situation where people are living around each other constantly, it is more of a problem. But if you're going to go into a hot tub after that, then that is a problem. If you're going to use a swimming facility, a pool, anything like that, after you showered in your swimsuit, like, you are noticeably degrading the hygiene of the situation, which is why naked swimming, naked showering is mandated and it used to be mandated here. It's still mandated in some places. If you ever go to Iceland, they will absolutely mandate that you shower naked before you use the Blaue Lónið or Logistical or any of the other municipal pools. And it's not because they have some kind of social view about nudity, although I'm sure that's also true, but it's because they want to keep the pool clean, and that is going to be much harder to do if people are showering in their suits. So that's true. Now, if it's just about your own cleanliness and your own hygiene, who am I to say, well, you don't want to, you don't mind if you have some particles of fecal matter that are going to be stuck up against your crotch and your nether regions or down your leg or whatever else. Why is that any of my business? Well, it's my business in the sense that it's, my shower. It's the shower that I built. The whole point of that was to have people become more comfortable with their bodies, to socialize, to break down social barriers, and to have this be a way for there to be some bonding, right? Which there was some, and that is greatly inhibited when you tell someone, I don't trust you enough to be naked in front of you. So I told the facilities guy that the showers are free. They're open to anyone. We have hot water. They're welcome to use them, with or without the hot tub. Totally fine. But you do have to go naked. And he said that he was relaying that, and we talked a little bit later. And there was pushback. There were a lot of people who really, really did not like that requirement, and who were quite adamant that they thought that was unfair. And I said, this maybe sounds douchey, but at a libertarian event, like, it's my shower, I can set the rules. We have freedom of association. None of us here believe in the Civil Rights Act, so it's a charity. I'm not charging anything to anyone. Which the facilities man, I forget, I don't know his name, but I would recognize his face if I saw him. Said that we should definitely charge, right? That we're going to run out. I said that we had 2 showers hooked up. He said if you have more, to please hook those up, which we did. We hooked up the 3rd. Which was mostly enough. I think there were a couple times when a 4th one would have been fine, but it means we have a 4th one that we didn't use, so that's not bad at all. So because they knew he was getting a lot of flack for closing the bathrooms, right? And he basically didn't have a choice about closing them because there just wasn't water, and you can't leave them open when there's no water to flush the toilets and there's no showers. So he started directing people to our site number, the name of the facility, and we started getting a lot more people as a result. And for the most part, they were okay with it. I suppose there's a self-selection bias there. If there was anybody who was absolutely against the idea of getting naked, those people probably did not show up, decided not to go, or walked away at the last minute. But the ones who did didn't seem to mind. I didn't get the feeling that they were relishing. Like, I didn't get the feeling that people were coming there because they wanted to check out all the hot naked bodies. First of all, there wasn't a ton of hot naked bodies anyway. It just seems like people who wanted to shower and did not mind that there was going to be some nudity there. And indeed some communal nudity, co-ed nudity, which I'll say, I have done Some of the gay nude beaches I've gone to require you to walk through like a straight nude beach part. So I definitely had seen like naked women before, but not very often and not in such close quarters. And I certainly never showered with one before. And, at Porkfest, I showered with, I don't know, three or four or five. I'm not sure exactly. Um, and, I mean, that did a lot to show that it wasn't all sexual on my part, because that's not something I wanted to see. But there it was. And so people started using them. People use them in the rain. One of the things is that we had the walls, but there was no roof. And, I hadn't planned that really. I mean, it was going to be difficult to get the roof high enough and allow people to, move. Then we'd have to find a way to do lighting. Whereas if we just had it open air, there'd be plenty of lighting. And I also thought the open air would help dry out the floor and just keep it a little bit more hygienic. And indeed it did. And it actually was one of the nicest things about the showers. They kind of became outdoor showers. Yes, there was a palisade, so you weren't showering naked in front of anybody who walked by, but you were kind of out in the air. And there were a couple of days where it rained a little bit, and actually that was kind of fun. You have a hot shower with cold rain, or if it was windy or breezy, that was also really fun. If you were taking a shower and a breeze picked up, it was kind of refreshing and nice. And several people who used them actually commented on that was something that they'd never done and that they really enjoyed. So I don't know. That's not really a communal shower thing so much as a showering outside kind of deal. It kind of makes sense too. If you think about a shower, it is a technological, infrastructural way to try and replicate a rain shower or at least a waterfall. When I've read about it, I feel like most people think it's a way to replicate a waterfall at least. But a lot of people really like that. And so I said every day more and more people came. There were two people. One was a girl. So I was in the hot tub one night, and a woman showed up, and she had her towel and her toiletries, and she was kind of checking out the showers. And one of the things is we didn't have a lot of signage, so it wasn't 100% clear, that there were even showers there. More than once you would see somebody walking past the site, kind of glaring at it, not glaring, but like trying to see and figure out if there were showers. Like you see somebody with a towel walking back and forth, and you're like, hey, there's showers here. And she was kind of checking it out in a kind of omnivorous, curious way. And I was like, hey, are you looking for the showers? She goes, yeah. I'm like, yeah, they're right here. They're free. Go ahead. And she was, oh, awesome. Like, you just have to use them naked. And she was like, are you serious? And I'm like, yep, that's the rule. You have to use them naked. And she left. She didn't come back. Now, maybe she came back at 1 a.m. or something. I don't know. But she was not having any of that. And then there was another guy who was going on. He went ahead and he got in. He was wearing boxers. And I said, hey, you have to use them naked. And he said the exact same thing. He goes, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. And he took his boxers off and he took a shower, and it was fine. It would be interesting to see, or to run an experiment. Not that I'll ever do this experiment, to say if we didn't require that, if many more people would have used them or not. Really impossible to test. Very interesting experience in terms of the men and women mixing. Don't think it was ever really a problem. I think it was a little too public. So that's one of the counterintuitive things. People always seem to have this association that a communal shower is going to be really cruisy, really hookup-y. And yeah, if you go to a bathhouse and they have a communal shower, sure. But in a facility that's really public, if you go to like a Korean bathhouse or a pool where there's a lot of people, then it's actually the opposite is the case, because it's too open and too exposed. And unless everybody there is on board with what's going on, then it's not going to happen. And I mean, if you're in a situation where everybody on there is on board with hooking up happening, doesn't matter if you have stalls or communal, right? If you're in a gay gym and literally every single person there wants to fuck, doesn't really matter if there are stalls. People are going to fuck. And so where it matters is where, if you have some people who are looking to cruise and other people who are not, in a situation where there's a communal shower, the openness will put a severe, and I would say almost complete ban or restriction on the people wanting to use it to cruise. Obviously, you can imagine scenarios where that's not the case, if it's empty or there's no one else there. But this really put a damper. The fact that it was public, the fact that people could see their heads. I didn't see anything going on. I didn't see anything even close to going that way, with one very, very, very minor exception. There was one very big girl using them. She used them a couple times, so kudos to her for her openness with that. And at one point, a guy in the hot tub who, I mean, this was interesting. A friend of mine who's gay showed up with a couple friends of his who are not gay, and he, took a shower and got in the hot tub. And I was talking to a straight friend, and at the time, this was like maybe Friday night, and I was trying to get the water used, so I wanted all the water to be used up, so we didn't have to get rid of it. Right? It was going to be hard to dispose of the water, whereas if it all got used, that would be perfect. And he didn't really want to. He was obviously like, I don't really want to shower. I'm like, well, when was the last time you took a shower? He's like, 3 days ago. I'm like, you haven't taken a shower in 3 days, and I've got a hot shower right there with soap, with shampoo. And so we did. He went and took a shower, then he got in the hot tub, and it was, pretty uneventful. And then this bigger girl showed up and started showering, and he's like, hey boys, I think it's time to shower again. And he did go and shower with her. Nothing happened when they were there. And then when they were changing out in the open, he said, hey, if you ever want to do anything, like, let me know. So, he hit on her, but didn't do anything with her. I don't know if they ever consummated the flirt later or not. Kind of don't want to know, to be honest. But that was the extent of it. I didn't see anything, and that's pretty tame. So it's not, the fact that it's public is what keeps that in line. It really is. I mean, the other thing would just be have it monitored constantly, but then you have questions about who's doing the monitoring and whatnot. So that is one of the options. At PorcFest, I don't know, it would be difficult to monitor it all the time, I think, but that's basically how it went. Now, in terms of, nobody really said anything about the co-ed. That was interesting. Nobody came and said, can you just have a women's hour or a men's hour? That was never asked, and that I never got. Like, more guys used it than girls, but there were many girls who did use it, and none of them that I talked to, none of them that I interacted with, none of them that I heard about ever complained or asked, can I have it just for myself or anything like that. I don't know. Again, there's probably a self-selection going on here. People are choosing to come, and if they weren't really into it, if they couldn't stand it, if they were really, really nervous, they probably just wouldn't have shown up. But so, yeah, there we go. Ooh, I got a chat request. So okay, interesting. So, I think if we had more facilities, I would actually like to split it up, but it just may not be possible. And then it becomes, how do you have two people monitor it instead of just one? I do also think like the disproportionate because the Body Freedom Village was being run by a gay guy, and I'm a gay guy, and we each have gay friends. Like, there were gay guys were overrepresented here, and I think that might have like made it even harder for there to be any kind of heterosexual impropriety happening. And by the same token, but there was enough heterosexuals around that there wasn't really any chance for homosexual stuff to happen, which I didn't see any homosexual stuff happen at all. Semi-unrelated, over on Reddit, someone was suggesting the idea of a gay hour for communal showers. Only issue I see is that it creates more cruising. Well, I don't even see what the point of that would be except to create cruising, right? Unless they're going to say, and I think this is just ridiculous at this point in time, that a gay person is likely to suffer some kind of discrimination. No, I don't think that's very likely. And I mean, look, private property, people can make whatever rules they want. The only way I could see that happening is if you had a place with a huge proportion of its members being gay, enough so that they're not alienating most of their customer base, right? So like if my gym did that, 95% of their clientele are not gay, so they would feel like they were getting shafted of the services, so I don't see what the reason would be. But again, a private property owner can do whatever they want. Like, I'm not against the idea of a whole bunch of gay guys showering together. I wouldn't mind, but I just don't see what the point of that would be. And I also don't see, other than to cruise, because the idea that like gays are getting constantly persecuted is just a victim Olympics at this point. And I mean, like, if you're at a facility where that's a legitimate concern, like where there's, violent anti-gay oppression happening, which, tell me where that's happening. I'd love to like verify that's even exists. But if it was, how many gay dudes are at that gym? Probably none, or very few. And so then it would even make less sense. Have you been to Steamworks? I have actually been to Steamworks in London. I went to Steamworks in London. It's the only gay bathhouse that I've been to. I went in 2017, and I'm pretty sure I caught scabies there. So, that's all I'll have to say about Steamworks. So, yeah, it wasn't... I don't see the point. I've been to gay... I've been to Steamworks. Steamworks has a communal shower. They have a hot tub. They have steam rooms. It's gross. It's sticky and gross. And it was like an interesting experience. I'm not going to knock it or whatever, but like, it just wasn't for me. I would feel much more fulfilled and happy, like for instance, when I went to Iceland and I took showers at Logistical or even Blauer Lónið, because it's just much more platonic and chill, and it's not like it's not fun. It's not for me. I mean, some people love it, and more power to you, but it was a good experience. I'm not going to say like I'm glad. I wish I hadn't gone. I'm glad that I did, but I have no desire to do it again. Whereas showering with perfect strangers who aren't even attractive and aren't even gay, or not attractive to me anyway, was much more fulfilling. And I got a chance to shower with some friends. There were some people I've met at PorcFest a couple times who I got to know over the last couple of years, and I got to shower with some of those guys and gals, and like that was really nice. So, and they even said, "Wow, it's like we're more connected," and it weirdly can be that way. Pros and cons of gay bathhouses. That's its own video. So a little bit off topic, people. How come people are asking questions about everything other than co-ed communal showers at PorcFest? Come on, people. So next year, we're already planning on doing it again next year. Bigger and better. We're not going to change too much, I don't think. I think we probably will stick with the co-ed just because it will be so much more difficult to build two facilities, and it really wouldn't be equal. More guys are using them by a factor of 3 to 1. And then you got the whole, what do the trans people do? In this facility, they would have done whatever they wanted anyway. So that just is no longer an issue. That also, I think, when you have people who are, it makes it far less likely that you're going to have a situation where everybody there is into each other, which helps, right? Have you ever visited Korean? Jimjibang. Yeah, I've been to a Korean bathhouse in New York City. I went with a couple friends maybe 2 years ago. Good experience. And that's another place. They're very adamant that there be no hooking up. They don't allow it. So yes, there's a lot of nudity, but you can socialize, but you can't hook up, and they're very, very strict about it. At least the one I went to. Maybe there's Korean bathhouses. That's not the case. That's how it was there. This time we didn't have it. We weren't officially like monitoring it. I tried to kind of hang out, and I was really curious about who would go, and I was also nervous about people fucking stuff up. We didn't do a great job. We tried to make some labels to explain how everything worked, but it proved most people couldn't figure it. So, this float valve just really proved difficult for most people to figure out. And so I had to go and be like, this is how you do it. And the other thing was, really was adamant that people use it naked. And I felt like I felt affronted to if somebody tried to sneak in there and do it with, their swimming suit on. So we're going to have to do more marketing and better labeling. But now that we know that it works, now that we already have the showers, we bought the water tanks. So we have the water tanks now. We don't have to worry about it in the future. Missed the first part of the stream. Hey, Parisia, good to hear you. Good to see you. Just go ahead and watch it when it's done. We had nobody complained to us. Nobody before or after the fact. I saw some people who didn't go to PorkFest posting along the lines that they were uncomfortable with the idea of there being like a nudism thing there. But among the people who were there, nobody said anything or had anything to really complain about. The showers were a valuable service that I think I think people were grateful for. One of the things that didn't happen, it definitely was true. There were some small children, at least one, but he was with his father. And again, I don't see what the problem with that was. There is the question of minors, or people under 18. And I know that there was it never actually came up, so it didn't really matter, but there was some disagreement there. I know the guy running the Body Freedom Village said he did not want any minors there unless they were with their parents. I don't have a problem with them being there with their parents. There's nothing wrong with that. I also just don't think it's a problem if they're there without their parents. I see teenagers who are not adults in the showers all the time. That's perfectly legal. The only problem is if you do anything, but just don't do anything and then it's not a problem. Were you uncomfortable being naked at the event or were you used to it? Well, at the event, I wasn't walking around PorkFest naked. But I was getting naked to use the showers. And that's another thing, is we didn't really have a changing room. The showers themselves were enclosed, but there was no extra space. The enclosure included the shower floor. Most people, and there was a picnic table nearby, but that was it. So people were typically outside and they would take off all their clothes outside and then they would walk into the showers and then come back out. If they were a little bit more prudish, some people would strip down to their boxers, go into the showers, take them off inside, hang them up, and then, go back. Fortunately, the adjacent people right next to us, it was a straight couple. They loved it. They were 100% on board. They used them. They used the hot tub. They helped us put it together, and they were totally supportive, even though they're not nudists, they're not gay. It was a straight couple. So that really helped, because if they had been really against it, that might have been really awkward. But so people, and I'll be honest, I've gone to nude beaches, but it's a place where everybody's naked. So to be naked when other people are not, that's like a next level of scrutiny, because then you really stand out as being the unclothed person. So that was a little bit of a stretch for me, but only a little bit. I've done enough that it wasn't that big of a deal for me, and plenty of people seemed completely okay with that. I mean, you had people who were stripping naked and walking 20 paces, in the open to get to the showers. And then you had some people who, they'd go in wearing their clothes and then strip in the showers and, throw their clothes over the end or whatever. When we do it next year, I think we will work hard to, have there be a changing area, have there be a place where people can keep their clothes dry and off the ground and whatnot. I still like the idea of an open air for the shower facilities themselves, but something enclosed for them to be in when they change would be really good. So that'll definitely be something that we'll try and incorporate next year. People seemed pretty okay with it, though. And again, if they weren't, I guess they wouldn't have come. So I remember the boys' locker room, the soap up being long, smooth, tiled hallway that lead to the showers and wetting things down for running, start and slide. Yeah. A lot of people justify circumcision because they don't want their sons to look different. Only places most see other boys as communal showers, pretty much. Doesn't mean you're contradicting. Just interesting. Well, but so you're absolutely right, Parisia, that one of the big arguments that people will use is like they don't want their son to look different. The problem with the argument is that I can argue about if this is good or bad, but like communal showers are now much less common. The days where they're a mandated rite of passage that everybody goes through in gym class are long gone. It still happens in a few places. I know one school that still requires it, but I only know one school that still requires it of gym goers. It is still practiced among some sports teams, but much less common. And they've been where the locker rooms, and this is one of the things, the research that I've been doing with the Communal Shower Association has shown a lot of locker rooms have just been completely abolished. Like schools have literally converted the locker rooms into classrooms. That like there is no locker room at all, let alone showers. Or if they retain a locker room, they will convert to stalls or get rid of the showers through lack of use and because of fears of nudity. So, and that's today. So if a kid is born today, right, unless, all my activism turns the tides and we start having a resurgence and a renaissance of communal showers, if anything, they'll be even less common in the future. The other thing against that argument, and not to make this a circumcision debate, but circumcision rates have declined. They haven't declined as much as some people thought and as much as I would like, but they've declined enough that you will no longer be the only person in the locker room. There will probably be 15, 20, 30% of the boys, depending on where you live, who are also uncircumcised. So it's not like you'll be the lone guy anymore. Giving people options is good, particularly as communal showers become marginalized. Keeping things nice for minorities is good when you're a minority. Yeah, but that can get too far where suddenly the minorities are dictating to the majorities, right? One of the things that I had seen posted was somebody said, well, Muslims don't like nudity, so therefore we should just not allow it anymore. I'm like, okay, Muslims say you can't denigrate Muhammad either, so we can't do that, right? Like, so they're a minority, but who cares? So they don't want to get naked because of their religious beliefs. Fair enough, then don't get naked, but don't force everybody else, right? And it's just also interesting too. So like, if you have people make a lot of arguments that aren't really backed up by anything. So people will say, well, trans people need stalls, but there isn't really any evidence for that. Like I said, I've 2 trans people at least use these communal showers without any complaint, and they use them multiple times. I've showered with trans people in other situations, at least one other time, maybe more. You can't always tell. Some of them are really good at passing. And none of them said they wanted to use a stall. Now, that's an anecdotal set of 3 people, so I'm not exaggerating the importance of that, but I haven't met any who said they wanted to use stalls, and maybe you can find some. In fact, I'm sure you could, but again, that would also just be an anecdote. So what you have is a lot of people who are not trans who don't like communal showers and then will invoke trans people as an argument. But I think it's a rationalization, not a real argument. I mean, you could just as easily argue that they want to be, if you have an FTM, a woman, born a woman who wants to become a man or identify as a man, wouldn't she want to be one of the guys, or she want to act like her trans surgically altered body is disgusting and needs to be hidden from the real men who would mock her, right? Again, that's a hypothetical, but it's a very easy thing for somebody to think that might be the reasoning that goes on. So, yeah. So, and same thing with like Muslims, there's Muslims who do it, don't mind, I've seen postings from them who say, I would love to be able to do this. And, to the extent that my culture allows it, I'm all on board. So like, but the obvious compromise then would be like, okay, so we'll have communal, and then we'll have like 1 or 2 stalls for the people who are, for whatever reason, legitimate or not. But what ends up happening is we end up saying, okay, well, there's 1% of the population that's trans, or not even. Therefore, all communal showers are abolished. And that's not a compromise at all. That's just letting the minority dictate to the majority. Did you have an issue with wind and weather? We had wind and weather. It wasn't really an issue. It was sturdy enough that we did have some wind. Nothing blew away. I was worried about that potentially happening. Obviously, if the wind was heavy enough, we would have had more problems, but it never was. Rain ended up not being a problem at all. It rained a few times. And everything worked. I mean, all the systems functioned fine. You could still have hot water. You could still shower. I I showered in the rain, and other people did as well, and it was actually kind of nice because you'd have cold water and hot water. The only problem was that your towel would probably get wet in that case, but it was completely fine. So um, yeah, it was actually more of a, and the wind actually felt good. I said earlier in the stream, if you're showering outside and you get a nice breeze, it's actually quite refreshing. And a lot of people, I noticed that, and I'd never experienced that before. And several other people commented on that too, unprompted. So that's definitely a thing. Are kids that have gone to boarding schools more likely to take communal showers? From what I know, from the people I've met who have gone or do go to boarding schools, the answer to that question is well, they use them in boarding schools. I don't know if those people will continue to use them after, but absolutely, boarding schools um, have communal showers. And if that makes sense, just in terms of you have a boarding school, they're living together anyway. What's the number one excuse for not showering in gym class in a regular school? I'll go home and shower. Or if you're in a boarding school, home is with a whole bunch of other students. You don't go home. Home is the school. The guy I know the best, he went to St. Paul's School, which is where J.P. Morgan went, and John Kerry and Mueller from the Mueller Report. They all went there, right? So it's one of the best boarding schools, and about a third of their students went to Harvard, and this guy also went to Harvard. And he said that their gym classes all had, and all their team sports all had communal showers, and also you had to play a sport. It wasn't optional. You could not go to St. Paul School and not be on a team. So you would, by that virtue, every single kid would be forced to take communal showers basically all year round. But on top of that, he said that their dorms did have stalls with curtains, but that it was an unspoken rule, but albeit basically a perfect rule, that the curtains never be closed. That it was considered shady, right? If you're closing the curtain, why are you doing that? Are you jerking off? Are you doing something wrong? Right? So he said that the curtains, in the 4 years he was there, he never saw even a single curtain closed. That's at St. Paul's. It would not surprise me if the other schools still had communal. Are you still planning on writing a book on communal showers? Yes, I would definitely like to do that. And the research that we're doing on the public school system for the Communal Shower Association is going to be the basis of that. We're going to have to go through a lot more schools. We've kind of set up the infrastructure of how that's going to work, and we've started the process. We've all been really busy. It's me and one other guy who are running the Communal Shower Association. And once we get, we're looking for volunteers, and we're trying to kind of get it set up, but we have a system to systematically go through, and what we'll end up being like, actually not just for communal showers, we'll basically have a database of every online record of every school district that we cover. And hypothetically, we would like to do every school district like in the country. It's certainly possible. It will be difficult, and that would take a long time unless we got a lot of volunteers, but it would be possible. And once that's done, the database that we're creating will be text searchable. So you couldn't, never mind showers, you could search any term you wanted, BLM, Civil War, showers, communal, sex ed, gym, baseball, whatever, and get every single mention of that in every single online record of every single school in the country that has online records anyway, which is most of them at this point. So that will provide an enormous amount of grist for the mill, I think. So yeah, floor adhesions. I was worried about the floor being slippery, which is why it was actually, the grooving was actually quite aggressive, let's say that, and to the point that it was almost a little bit uncomfortable, which I almost liked, because then it would minimize how long people would be in there. At least I thought it would. It ended up not. People would still, some people still ended up using them for quite a long time. So yeah. So then we used almost all the water, but not quite all of it. I think we probably had maybe 200 or 300 gallons left at the end, maybe a little bit more. And we were able to dump that, or pump it out directly into the septic tank, which seemed like a waste, but we'll have more people next year. Broke it down. It took maybe 3 hours to tear down The showers are fine. We can definitely reuse those. One of them we didn't even use at all. The other three, they seem fine. They're in nice climate controlled storage. They'll be ready for next year. The tarps, they're fine. The PVC pipes, those are all fine. The floor itself, though, it got a lot of water on it, and obviously it was wood, and it wasn't wood treated for water exposure. Having done a lot of research since then, they do make wood that's treated, that's called so-called yellow wood or pressurized, compressed plywood that can take a lot more. Looking up different materials, stuff that's not wood, stuff that's just going to be water resistant and safe and whatever. So we'll have to make a different floor basically, but we got a whole week to do that. Did people try to separate by gender or did they stay together? Well, Russell Hunter, the thing to understand there is that the shower floor was 8 feet by 4 feet with no dividers, with 3 shower heads. That meant that there really wasn't space for there to be separation. 2 people would still only be a few feet apart. So no, I don't think so. Normally there'd only be 1 or 2 people in there. Several times each day you would get maybe 3, and then once or twice 4 or 5. I think the most I ever saw in there was 5. Because of with 3 shower heads, it wasn't just 3 people, 4 people could shower because you could have one person like doing their hair and the other people shower. Yeah, so they didn't really there was one point, it was I think on Friday or Saturday, where a straight couple I have known for years, or a year anyway, they showed up. They wanted to try it. I think they wanted to try it just to humor me because I knew it was like the thing that I was doing. And when they arrived, we started chatting, and while we were chatting, a woman showed up. This Asian woman showed up and started to shower, and we started to make small talk, and then it seemed like we were kind of, I was doing this. I was like, well, let's wait till she's done. In my head, I didn't say this, but I started like drawing out the conversation to kind of wait for her to be done. And then I was like, we don't have to do that. We can just go in with her. That was even my mentality, was like, oh, I don't have to wait for her to be done. There's 3 shower heads. If there's 4 of us, that's not a big deal. And so I was like, hey, let's go. And they're like, oh, all right. And so, the 3 of us joined her. And so we had 4 people. And even with 3 shower heads, that was plenty. And they donated they donated like over $20, I think. And they messaged me several times after just saying, wow, that was really fun. We didn't expect that. We really enjoyed it. It was a nice shower. It was nice to like meet and get to know you better. And then the other girl, who I don't know her name, but she came back with her boyfriend and they took a shower together. So like, but to answer your question, that separation just wasn't possible physically. Like really, there might have been some segregation where maybe I didn't notice this really, but there might have been times where maybe somebody waited until there was only one sex or the other, but I didn't see that. So no, I don't think so. Pressure treated wood tends to have carcinogenic arsenic though. Okay. So yeah, well, we're Matt for MSC. We're sorry, I butchered your name there. Definitely looking into different surfaces, something that's water resistant, that's slip resistant, and that's strong. If we can cover it, cover the pallets, we'll be fine. We do want to try and switch to a Bradley pole system. I'm thinking about getting 2 more showers, so we'll have 6 with maybe 2 Bradley poles each. I would definitely, if we can do that, do that. I would also like to make the floor bigger, but the bigger the floor, the heavier, the more pieces, the more complex the drainage situation becomes. And that's something that the drainage is going to be the biggest issue, really. You want all the water to go down the drain, not onto the floor. We did end up getting a lot of water did go onto the ground. Not enough to form a river, not that much, but so let's just see. This is what you get for live streaming. So looking that up. I have this stupid idea of making them out of stone. I've been thinking about making a stone floor ever since we did it, and the more I look into that, the harder that becomes. That looks like that would be very, very difficult. The stone would be both expensive and heavy, and very likely to break under those situations. If you're going directly into like a floor, a solid like a concrete floor, a cement floor, or something like that, it'll be fine. But if it's on plywood, it's going to break. They do make, I mean, there's a whole company that makes money retrofitting decks and wooden surfaces for stone, but none of them are for modular things that move around. So I've seen somebody set up a similar shower situation at a rodeo event where they used a horse trailer. If you're planning on expanding, are you considering a trailer? So yes, many people brought that up, and I think that is maybe one of the most effective ways, because then you have the floor. You can adjust the floor with jacks to get the drainage right. You already have your elevation, and you can do all the setup before, but then it becomes a question of what trailer, right? All those kind of things. So definitely that might be the best possible option, especially if you're going to do something regularly. So we may look into that a lot more, because a trailer setup could be incredibly good. And then we could have the type of flooring that we want, the types of drains that we want. Concrete blocks stacked together. The drainage would be almost, I don't know how we get the drainage to work for that. Also, that'd be incredibly heavy. Like the pallets were plenty strong, but also small enough and light enough that I was able to pick up the pallets one by one and load them into a U-Haul myself, unload them myself, take them apart. Right. It didn't require that much effort. Blocks would have been much harder, much more labor intensive. Hey, John laughs. Joe laughs. I always thought your name was John. So yeah, we're probably, the problem is with the truck is it would be, a lot of money up front potentially, and then a lot of work, and then we have to tow it and everything. But it's definitely a good option if we can make it work. That's something we'll probably look into though. It's one of those things where like there's a couple different ways we could do it, and then it becomes a question: how often are we going to do this? How regular is it going to be? One other thing with the trailer though is like if we do it, then we're kind of stuck with the trailer for a long time. Where the floors that we're setting up now, it's like we can build a better one next time. So we'll see. But yeah, AJ Malone, we definitely have thought about that, and that's definitely something that we'd consider. All right, guys. So this is until next year. We're probably, everyone involved said they want to do it again, and we're already talking about things bigger, better ways to do it. A lot of it has already been solved. We already know how it works. We've got the pumps, we've got the showers, we've got the tanks. Having the tanks will make getting the water a lot easier because we won't be asking to, we just need it to be delivered. That's it. It just becomes a design question. What designs do we want? Which designs can we do? And we're not made out of money, so I think the budget came out to, I think we spent just a little over $3,000, but we split it between two people, and then maybe another $300 for the site itself. Is the Communal Shower Association a nonprofit? Where can we donate? So the Communal Association right now is a website. We are not accepting donations at this time. I think eventually we do want it to get to that point. Let me see here. Communal Shower Association. Also recommend, there's a lot of people on my subreddit who they don't like the subreddit because there's teenagers on there. I totally get it. I don't agree, but I totally get it. So a good alternative is the Communal Shower Association, which there's no forums, there's no, it's much more vetted, so we're not getting random posts. Let me put a link to this. Oh, I can't sign into the chat. God damn it. Can somebody do me a favor? Go on Google, type Communal Shower Association, And when you find it, it just says Communal Shower Association, and there's like in the background there's a picture of a guy, only his back, you can't see any nudity, showering under a Bradley pole. If you can find that and post it in the chat, it says I have to sign in to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sign in. But check that out. If you're on the subreddit and you don't like, that there's teenagers there, and this is the other, and I talked about it already. This seems to be like one of the main stumbling blocks. Like, interestingly enough, the co-ed part wasn't an issue. Nobody complained about that. Nobody brought up any kind of don't like girls, don't like guys, intermix, don't like gays and guys, don't like gays and girls, don't like trans, all that, no problem. Problem came with minors. And we didn't have, the only minor I saw in there was 2, and he's with his dad. So like that, obviously, links will get blocked in the chat. Oh, I'm sorry. Shit. Well, so if you want to donate, just go look up the communalshowerassociation.com. It's not an official association, but it is an official website. And if you go up to participate, you can sign up with your email. And it is an association. We have, I'm not sure how many, but like there's definitely people who have joined. And that's where we're kind of becoming the cornerstone of research and then advocacy later. We're setting up the scaffolding for that to happen. And so, can I do that on YouTube? Can I, let me, I should be able to post, right? It's fucking my channel. Let's see. Say something. Paste. Okay, there. Check that out. Did it work? There it is, everyone. Communal Shower Association, and if you look up participate, you can sign up your email. We're not accepting donations at this time, so you can save your wallet for later. That is the nucleus of actual an association at some point, like an actual registered organization. We're getting there, step by step by step. So yes, it worked. I see it. Thanks, Drew. So yeah, but so the big stumbling, so it's funny, like guys and girls, no problem. Trans and guys, trans and girls, no problem. Old and young, no problem. It's with minors, and especially teenagers. So like there was like a 2-year-old who showered with his dad, and like who's going to argue with that? Nobody did, as far as I know. But yeah, a woman came by one day, and she didn't talk to me. She talked to Body Freedom Village guy, Jeff, who, again, Jeff and I mean, it was a good team effort. He got the cost of the site, and we split the water, and like it was a good mutually beneficial arrangement. But she was talking to him, and she said, "Hey, I have a son. He hasn't showered in a couple days. Neither has he and his friends. They really need it. He's 15. They're all like mid-teens." And she was like, they're running around smoking weed, which she didn't mind. This is PorkFest after all, so nobody cared. And she says, "I want him to come over and take a shower and bring his friends." And I have absolutely no problem with that, but she wasn't asking me. She was asking Jeff, Body Freedom Village guy, and he said they can't do it without their parents. I understand that, and the same thing happens in the subreddit constantly. People are like, "We don't want teens in here," and it's not everybody, but a lot of people. "We don't want teens. Teens shouldn't be in here. It's too dangerous." Blah blah blah. It's interesting because if you're talking about just taking a communal shower, that's not even illegal in any way. Again, if you go to a gym, if you go to a pool, and they have communal showers, chances are there's going to be teenagers in there, and I've see them all the time at my gym. I've seen them at every gym that I've ever traveled to, as long as they didn't have a strict rule about separating the locker rooms, which some of them do. I hate the way that looks, by the way. That's terrible there. Much better. It's really, people are really on their tippy toes about it. And I get it, because like if something happens, then, it could be a serious crime. But that's also true. Like if you rape a woman you're both adults, it's a serious crime, right? So don't rape a woman and you won't have that problem, and don't, molest a teenager and you won't have that problem. So, and also the whole point of the evangelism is to encourage it. And if you just say we don't allow anybody who's, under 18, then how are you supposed to encourage it? If you have somebody who has consistently avoided an activity, whatever that is, until that age, then they're just not going to be into it. So that was it wasn't a huge issue because we didn't have a lot of people trying, as far as I know, but it was, having your friends see your mom naked sounds like its own issue. This is exactly what I'm thinking glorious content, because they never showed up. And I think if the idea that they had to shower with their mom, that probably was, well, I don't know because I didn't talk to them, but like, it wouldn't surprise me if that was part of the problem. It seems to me like the companies who design and build porta potties could come up with a self-standing communal shower. They already have trailers. Kenneth Brock, you're absolutely right. They could, but they don't anymore. If you go online, and I definitely tried this, all the rented shower trailers, and there's many you can get nowadays, they're always stalls, even though that will reduce the cleanliness and reduce the capacity by a substantial amount, right? If you have a trailer that is dedicated to stalls versus one that is communal, you could probably fit something like 20 or 30% more shower heads and more shower space, but people would still have the same amount of space, right? Because you're just subtracting all of the volume of walls and doors and curtains and all that. And then also, just imagine if you have a single, flatbed truck, a 30-foot by 10-foot space that's a single shower hall versus that same space that's, 6 individual shower stalls. Which one are you going to be able to clean better and faster? There's just absolutely no question. And also, which one are you going to be able to monitor better, right? If you have a shower trailer that's got 6 individual shower stalls and they have locking doors and individual stalls, well, who the fuck knows what goes on in there? Anything. You could have, where you have a single space, then that just can't happen. Communal showers, communal toilets. I don't know why, but like the communal toilets and the communal urinals is like one of the big things that has like come up in the subreddit. It's not my thing, but I guess I see it. So that's proved, and I don't, like, on the one hand I get it, on the other hand I don't, because it's not illegal to shower with a teenager. It's not illegal to see a teenager naked. It's not illegal for a teenager to see you naked. Now, if you go and have sex with them, depending on the state and depending on exactly how old the teenager is, yes, that could be a serious crime. Just then don't have sex with them, right? The same is true with, it's same is true with a man and a woman, right? You can't rape her, and it's like, well, but you're not minors, so it's fine. No, that's not how that works legally. So, the trepidation, I think I understand it, but I think it's counterproductive if you're talking about evangelizing, right? If you're trying to persuade people and you have young people that are interested, and look, there are pitfalls. It's been a problem on the subreddit. I want teenagers in there. I want teenagers posting about their experiences. I want there have been teenagers, they claim to be teenagers. Who knows how many of them actually are. And they don't post pictures. There's no like child nudity or anything like that, but they'll say, hey, I took my first communal shower. And unfortunately, they often get solicited by, people who bring up sexual stuff right away. Granted, it's a subreddit with 6,200 members or whatever, and it's a handful, 4, 5, 8 people, something like that. But people are a lot more brazen, though, over the internet than they would be in real life, especially in an open, monitored situation, right? You're not going to go and try anything in a public setting. That's the whole. It's one of the biggest, most valid, counterintuitive points about the entire thing. In a stall, you can do anything. In a communal, you can't do anything that is uncouth to anybody else who might be there. And if it's public and it's open, that could be anyone. If it's monitored, absolutely no. And you can't do monitoring. You can't really do monitoring for stalls, right? You can try. It's much harder though, right? You get distracted for a moment, 2 people go in. Who knows what they can do, right? So like, yeah. So, not that we're going to ever target teenagers to come, but if it was up to me and I had my druthers, like, they would definitely be welcome. And if we just do monitor it have it so nothing can happen. Nothing can happen. The other thing too, I think the proximity to Body Freedom Village and 5 or 6 naked gay dudes, and like guilty here myself, probably kept some people away. I don't know how many or how much. Certainly plenty of women and plenty of straight guys still showered anyway, but it would not surprise me if it's like, taking a communal shower is one thing, buying into public nudity is another thing. Maybe they're on a spectrum and one is closer to the other, but it seemed like, I think a lot of people got the impression if you wanted to take a shower, you had to become a nudist. And, nobody, I wasn't saying that. The guy running the Body Freedom Village wasn't saying that. That wasn't there, but people were getting that impression, I think. Yeah, support for / opposition to communal showering is make it, break it in adolescence. Most people aren't going to start during adulthood. The guy is undermining the point of the organization. So I agree. Obviously, there are exceptions. There are people who do start in their 20s and 30s. That's a real thing. You can persuade adults to do it, absolutely. But if you treat it, it's not only not a question of just not persuading them. When you treat it like this is so taboo and dangerous that you shouldn't be allowed to do it, then the lesson that they're learning is this is taboo and dangerous and I shouldn't do it. And that is not the case. And that is not the lesson that you want to be learned. And it's not being officially taught. It's so weird because it's perfectly like, I mean, teenagers are less likely to do it than adults, but like you still see it like in, every day somewhere in America, right? It happens. So, but it's just interesting too, that like that was like boys and girls, no problem. Old and young, no problem. Father, son, no problem. Mom, daughter. There's a couple mom, daughter systems that I saw, at least one. But, a 15-year-old boy and a 25-year-old guy, no. So we'll see. So, all right, guys, it's been an hour and a half. Any final questions, ideas, thoughts, comments, concerns? Bring them all out now. If you've been lurking around, watching, and not said anything, speak now or forever hold your peace. I'll give it 1 minute. 1 minute from now for you all to say anything. Oh, goodness. Wait a second. I'd argue the make or break is childhood by adolescence. It's been internalized as taboo. It's going to be hard to change minds. Yeah, I mean, favorite Jim Jesus video. I mean, I agree. It's easier and healthier if you start, right away. And like, that's the big takeaway. If you ever go to Iceland or, Gillette, Wyoming, where they seem to do it to their kids there. But you work with what you can. Drew, Jim Jesus and I, the thing that we kind of tag teamed and did the most, we've never done an episode together, but he and I did a lot of anti-Venus Project stuff back in the day, back in the 2012s and 13s. And he did a lot of Venus Project video takedowns. So did I. And the other one would be his takedowns of Molyneux. Again, something that we both did. I think he and I are different in a lot of ways, but those are two things that we really connected on. Interestingly enough, Venus Project and stuff on Molyneux are weirdly parallel in a lot of ways, and made kind of similar category errors. So definitely that stuff. Thanks for posting more. My pleasure. Any thoughts on the Mises Caucus? It looks like they're going to take over the Libertarian Party, and I don't have a problem with that at all. The people who are against them are like almost always completely delusional. The stuff that they think that they say, they want to. I mean, I was talking to Joe Bishop's henchman's husband, right? Not Joe Bishop's henchman himself, but his husband, and he thinks they want to kill all black people. He literally, honestly thinks they want to kill all black people. Um, uh, keep making. Oh, I think Parisia. I'll do another podcast probably tomorrow. Do you know the name Coleman Hughes? I do know the name Coleman Hughes. Yeah, I know who he is. I watch his stuff. Not all the time, but I've seen his stuff. 3 hours later, where you are, but days are longer because it's up north. Have a good night. Thanks for the presentation. Thanks, Joe. Have a great evening. And our libertarian is filled with leftists who associate libertarian with the original term. Thanks, E. Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Greg, Joe, Parisia, Jim Jesus, if you still happen to be here. I doubt it. All right, let's see. Well, I want to thank everybody for, whoa, why does Germany and especially the former Eastern Europe have such a pro-nudism culture? Was it the communists, the fascists? How far back does the nudism go? Greg Melchip, I know what you're referring to. I don't know why it is. I don't know the reason for that. So, I mean, I have lots of friends who go to Germany, and like they're also, their kink culture is way more developed and extreme and advanced than it is here. So I don't know. I don't know why that is. If I had to speculate, so this is speculation, and I'm not saying this is true because I don't know. The fact that they had drafts for so long and so many people were in the military up until relatively recently, right? It was the draft was only abolished in Germany, even West Germany, like less than 10 years ago. It was like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So maybe that, but I honestly don't know. Thoughts on Charles Murray? He has a new book called Facing Reality. So I haven't read his new book. I read Losing Ground, which is one of his books from the early 90s, I think from before the bell curve. And I think he's a really thoughtful academic. I don't necessarily agree with everything that he says. I don't think that, for instance, that we're going to have technologically enforced unemployment. You know, I think that he's aware that that's never happened in the past, and he just thinks this time it will be different. And I think I don't agree with him, but that's a small point. That's not like a huge like critique of him, or you know, it's just something I don't agree with him on. But that's it. So, of course, now you all want to talk at the end when I say last call. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and have a great night. Goodbye.